just celebrated Passover. We've got the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And today is actually, this day, starting Saturday night, is the Festival of First Fruits, which is an amazing festival to go. Jesus was raised as the first fruit on the Festival of First Fruits.
Wow.
God is so into details.
So intentional there.
It was so intentional. We missed it. In 1 Corinthians 15, Paul calls Jesus the first fruits of the resurrection, which means there's more harvest coming. Now, it's been 2,000 years since we've had more harvest, but God's timetable is different than ours.
Okay, so
that means there's more.
Exactly what do you mean by that? Well, first of all, I want to just a quick snapshot on what was this celebration? What did you call it? The Festival of the First Fruits?
First Fruits, yeah.
We had Erin Davis talking about the Passover, and she, I think, briefly mentioned there are 7 feasts, and so this is one of the 7 feasts.
Yes.
So just give us a snapshot. What did they do to celebrate the first fruits?
You can find it in Leviticus 23. Everybody was supposed to do it. You would set off a portion of your field, and it was your barley harvest, because that was the first thing that ripened and you could harvest in Israel. And you would set off a small portion, water it, make sure it was the best portion. And that was the first thing you would harvest, and you would bring that to the temple and offer it to God. And then you would rejoice. And you would party as a family. And part of this, Shannon, was you weren't allowed to eat any new grain or produce until you had offered God his first. Okay. So up until this point, you're still eating the apples from last year. Okay. You're still using the grain from last year, the grapes, the wine from last year. You haven't touched any of your new harvest yet, because you have to offer God his portion first. So this is a big deal, but also you're showing faith that, God, I believe more is coming. I'm giving you the first portion, but that means you're going to give me a greater harvest to feed my family, to take us through another year. So this first fruit shows that I believe more is coming. There's a bigger, greater harvest coming after this, but the first portion goes to God. And
so these people who are traveling to Jerusalem, have they brought some of their first fruits there to sacrifice? Okay.
Yes.
Like a little bag of barley or something?
You had to have 2/3 of a bushel, I think it was. And the temple even had its own barley that it would sacrifice, that it would use. And you would bring it to the temple, to the high priest, and the priest would turn it into bread, or maybe you've turned it into bread. You would sacrifice it with an animal. The priest could eat it, and then you would partake of the animal. It was a big party, a big celebration. And once you had offered this to God, you were now free to go home and continue harvesting and eating your new harvest. And rejoicing, you've worked really hard to feed your family. You've worked really hard all year to have a harvest, and now you get to celebrate and enjoy it.
So when we were with Erin Davis, we talked about how all of these feasts were pointing, as they celebrated, they didn't even realize what they were anticipating. And now we can look back and see how Jesus was the fulfillment, but Jesus is the fulfillment of this first fruit. Tell us one more time, exactly what does this mean for us?
Okay, this amazes me when I started understanding this, Shannon, because God is so into details, and he so loves those aha moments when you go, oh, I get it. Jesus is the first fruit. In his resurrected, coming back from the dead, he is the first man to be resurrected. In Scripture, you see other people who have been resuscitated. They've come back to life, but they've all died again.
Right.
Jesus is resurrected. He cannot die again. He's defeated death. It cannot touch him. His body is perfect. It is ageless. It can't get hurt. It can't be beaten. And so as the first fruits, that means as he is, we will one day be. When we get resurrected, that's what waits for us. We talk about these people in heaven. We talk about salvation, Shannon. We say, so you can go to heaven when you die. But that's not the resurrection, because the people in heaven are physically dead. Their bodies are lying in a grave. And yes, there's a part of them that is with Jesus. 100%, I believe that. I have taught my kids, when you die, you close your eyes here and you open them, and the first person you see is Jesus. That's death for the believer. But your body, to be with Jesus.
Yeah, to be absent.
If it's your soul. Yes.
To be absent in the body is to be present with the Lord,
Yes.
right? Mm-hmm.
Yes. And so I don't know if it's your soul, your spirit that God takes. So there's a part of these people that is with Jesus in heaven right now, but physically they're dead. They are not resurrected yet. You know, there's a day coming, just like what happened for Jesus, where God is going to knit these bones together. God is going to put lungs and fill them with air and flesh and blood and organs onto these bodies. And they're going to walk out of the grave and they are going to be alive. That's what it means to be resurrected, to be physically fully alive, more than we can even fathom right now. And so your body won't stay in that grave. You won't stay in heaven. You are resurrected. You know, the Bible, Revelation, talks about a new heaven and a new earth, that God's going to create everything new. And so just as our bodies will be new, the earth will be new and we'll be able to enjoy it. You won't have to stub your toe again. You won't get sick again. You won't have to cry again. There will be no more death. You will have defeated death through the power of God. That's the resurrection that we have to look forward to, not just an eternity of floating around, but an eternity of life, real life.
That is something worth holding on to.